Yeah. Right here on Black Power Media, y'all in the place to be. And in case y'all didn't know, this is the Remix Morning Show. And I go by the name of The Ear Doctor. And let me introduce you to your host today. We have no other than Dr. Jared Ball, Jackie Lukman, and Kamal K. Franklin, y'all. Come on.
Yeah. What's up, good people? Greetings.
What up?
Good morning.
I like the shirt, Ear Doctor.
Hey,
I thought you was talking about me.
No.
Okay, that's a nice shirt too.
It's not a dashiki, it's a flashiki.
Oh no.
Nice. Hey, he had to come back after that flashback yesterday, boy.
I
You called it up. I was like, let me dig in the closet real quick.
Nice.
Jackie, I love your outfit also.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're so welcome, Jackie.
Kamal, compliments.
I see what's going on.
I'm looking for a compliment for Kamal. Still looking.
Chirp, tweet, crickets.
Nice hairline, Kamal.
The silent cuss.
Oh wow. Yeah, congratulations on the hair. Yeah. I mean, there you go. That's it. I'm a little jealous. Every time I see him, I'm a little jealous. Him and Kalanji be up here shaming us with the hair.
Wow, the wind blowing.
The wind is blowing.
So listen, I'm anxious to tell you all and ask you all this morning if you were already in the viewership of the new Matrix film. I watched it last night.
I haven't seen it
tonight
yet.
Okay.
I'm probably gonna watch. Probably gonna see Spider-Man and the Matrix this weekend. Yeah.
Spider-Man is killing the box offices. Apparently, people as my world football shuts down and all these other people shutting things down for the Omicron and all the whatever. Here comes Spider-Man, and people are like, movie theaters.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
Exactly. They're like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Damn a virus. I gotta see my web slinger.
Like double mask with my gloves on, sitting in the corner, little thing of Lysol.
I've only gone back for matinees, and then it's like 12 seats apart. It's like, okay, ain't nobody here but the four of us. Right.
Yo, you remember we used to go watch a matinee and see like 3 movies in one day? Man.
Yeah.
$3.50.
Yeah,
I meant sneaking in another movie too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I thought you meant
y'all paid? I'm sorry.
Oh, my bad.
I did pay. I'm a good Feline Streets kid, man. We paid for our movies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All you hoodlums.
We paid for one of them.
Right,
one of them.
The first movie.
For the first one.
But then I had the ultimate hack because at 15, I worked at the new movie theater that popped up around here. And it was who wants to see how many movies and eat how much popcorn for free? It was kind of like when I once became a bartender and got fired on the night of my birthday because I had
giving away all the drinks.
I had my girlfriend at the time and all my friends at the bar, and the woman that ran this little dive bar at the end of the night was checking the till, and she said, "You had a packed bar for hours, and the till is like $100." And I myself had to be driven home. You know what I'm saying? I could not drive home. So she was like, hold up. You can't be drunk and have everybody drunk. And I only made $100. So happy birthday and don't come back.
Fired.
Word. Well, yo, I'll catch you on the break. Peace.
True.
Yeah, peace, doctor. I do want everybody to see, I am caught up a little bit.
So you watched it already?
I watched The Matrix and because I was caught up in I didn't really care about the initial sequels, which I did see years ago, but I did catch myself getting caught up in all the hype and the discussion of the here it comes again 20 years later or whatever, and all the background, and I've watched some of the commentary on it. It was, I won't spoil it for anybody. I encourage,
would you say it is worth it? You liked it?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth it, and there are things I liked about it, and then there are just things that I don't know, And I will say, this is one thing I will say, if I can, sort of move into Kamal's Brooklyn anti-rapper lane for a second in a certain kind of way, to be blasphemous. I have to say, I have never been a Jada Pinkett Smith fan as an actress.
I just do not feel alone now. I feel so seen.
The tribe of three. It's a tribe of three.
Oh wow, okay. Because I thought I was like, I mean, she's always been attractive. I've even liked some of the movies she's been in, but her own. So when she shows up in this Matrix, I'm like, why? This isn't the one I want to see. This isn't it. And then the worst part of it is, I think that any resurgence of fame that she or her husband gets allows for the nonsense of their non-acting commentary to carry more weight. So now we got to deal with more of these red table talk, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like it all just gets, and I'm like, oh man, the Matrix is, you know. But that's the one thing I will say this morning about it. Give people a chance to check it out, you know.
Okay,
I mean, go, you know what I'm saying? It's, you know.
I mean, I feel that. I feel that. I feel like, you know, it was. I was kind of done with the last one, which was really terrible. It was really bad. And it was like, that was one of those sequels where what was that? Revolutions, Matrix Revolutions was one of those sequels that makes you hate movie sequels from like really great initial movies. And when they said they were coming out with this one, I mean, I love Keanu Reeves, but I also know he's a terrible actor. So it's not like I have like these illusions of him. You know, I like his acting skills. He has no acting skills. I know this. He's just cute. So, you know.
Hey, as long as you embrace your truth, Jackie. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just being honest. I'm just in that, you know, thank you, embracing truth and honesty season in the winter solstice. No, Keanu Reeves cannot act. That's all right. His looks make up for it. And I mean, I just feel like, and I think the fact that he cannot act, and Neo is such a very straight, one-dimensional, very one-dimensional kind of. He was perfect for it. I mean, he didn't even have to try.
But you know what, Jackie? You might be surprised in this joint.
Really?
You might.
Is he gonna have emotions now?
You might. There is a difference in his character, so you might feel like Keanu stretched a little bit. You might. Okay. We'll see.
All right. I mean, I
the thing for me though, the one thing that is clear is that that even the suits in Hollywood understand, much like the Matrix, that we out here desire a revolution. We deserve one. We need one. People want one. And this is just another way of feeding into that desire in an unthreatening way. Like you want some revolution. You want some hope. You want some, you know, you want us to push that you're unhappy beneath the surface button.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're going to do that for you. You know what I mean? We're going to give you that. We're going to give you your French fries and your milkshake and make you feel better. But it might not ultimately be, you know, I will say this, when I still haven't felt the way I felt walking out of Queen and Slim. That's the feeling I want in a movie, regardless of all of its flaws. That is the last time I left a movie feeling like, that's what I'm talking about. That's anyway. So, you know, we'll see. I mean,
it's been a while. Yeah, like that was a really good. I agree with all its flaws. I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah,
I mean, actually didn't see. I don't think I saw that one. I didn't finish watching it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Deep.
I didn't finish watching it. Well,
yeah,
I can't tell you why I didn't finish watching it.
Oh boy. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Put the kids away.
Like the black couple on the run. Black couple on the run.
That's why we didn't finish watching it. He's like, damn, girl, that's us. I'm like, yep.
Too real life it was hit home too much.
Lukeman After Dark. Tune in later on BPM. For
okay, I guess I'll go watch. Sorry about that.
I mean, I'm just saying in terms of, you know, like, I get it. Like these are products, and they're not really here to do what we want us to, what we need done. But in terms of just an emotional, what pushed the buttons that I'm looking to have pushed, Queen and Slim is. I mean, I walked out of there like, wow, That's what I'm talking about. This is how I want to feel leaving a movie, even if I'm not thrilled with everything or how it ends or whatever. I just want, that's the emotional lane I want to be in. You know, but anyway, you know, I mean, anyway, I watched some of the discussion of the new Matrix, and there's too many non-spoiler reviews out right now. Now that I've seen it, I need to see what people think when they're really trying to get into it. So aside from people trying to get their YouTube numbers up, you know, for that early discussion, I'm trying to, you know. But anyway, so I encourage people to check it out, and I do encourage people also, as I think I said yesterday, to see the HBO documentary, The Slow Hustle, about Baltimore police. I had a number of a series of conversations about that documentary off the record yesterday, which are unfortunately going to have to stay off the record. But again, with all of its flaws, it's something that I think we need to be engaged in and checking into, and really even the details behind the scenes. Because what the police are doing and clearly thinking they are comfortable to get away with, is the point I always come back to. You know, even when they get caught, the idea that you were willing to try this tells me that the institution leaves room for people to be getting away with this stuff enough for you to think you were going to get away with it. If you thought you were going to get caught and put away for 20 years like some of them did, you know, you probably wouldn't do it. But I think enough of them are like, nah, I see him getting away with it and her getting away with it and them getting away with it, so I'm trying to get it. It's like, so
I'm not gonna be the only broke one out here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Everybody else on the bag, I ain't getting on. Come on.
Exactly.
Put me on.
But the other part of it is kind of like what remind me of the Serpico story, is that part of it that I think shows up in this documentary is also that people who may not want to be actually involved are also not willing to snitch or to shut it down. So in trying to be in that liminal space of, I'm not really down with it, but I'm not going to tell on you, it just allows for so much to happen. Anyway, so I mean, you know.
I think that's a lot of institutional think, right? I mean, that happens. It's like whether you're on the bag or not, who wants to be the rat? And then, you know, the feds, you know, when they want to, though, they'll make you a rat. So that's usually how they break it down, because, you know, they threaten to put you away for 20 years as opposed to somebody else. Most people, no matter what they like to believe, they start singing like a bird.
Yeah. And this is the story of the death of that cop in Baltimore, right?
Sean Suter,
surrounding the Freddie Gray investigation. And
it wasn't Freddie Gray so much. It was the Gun Trace Task Force.
Oh, that's right.
And then he was set to testify against one of them. And the day before, he either kills himself or is killed in an alley.
Mysteriously found dead in an alley.
I mean, it's a fascinating story. And it leaves, the way the documentary is framed, it leaves room for you to go in either direction. Was it a suicide? Was it murder? But the real point for me is there was no note.
Was he shot?
So the crux of the controversy is, was he trying to kill himself but make it look like he was killed so his family would still get the benefits? So, you know, or was he killed because he was going to testify against other corrupt cops, and to get himself out of trouble? To your point, Kamau, he was himself implicated, and then they go into details of what these cats were doing. I mean, and it's brazen, film level. You know, you would think if you saw this in a movie, it's some exaggerated Hollywood thing, and it's really not. I mean, this is where truth is stranger than fiction, and these cats are just out here. I mean, masked up in civilian clothes, robbing drug dealers and whoever else, killing people, planting dope on people, guns on people, selling that dope to people. You know, they were just out here getting it in and killing and doing whatever they wanted. I mean, and the only reason they got and what was not in the documentary that I learned yesterday is that and I know we got to get to Ear Doctor, is that this is, to me, one of the fascinating pieces that's not in the documentary. The reason they got caught is because when the federal investigators went to put a trace on one of the cars, underneath one of the cars, and I'll leave it here for now, he went under the car to put the trace there and found that there was already one there. And that's what starts the actual pathway for them because who put the other one there and why was the other one there? And what was the point of that? And it gets real murky and crazy, man. I'm just saying.
Wow.
It's
I got some nice stuff queued up to watch for the holidays. So this is on the list. This is on the list.
You know what they need to have? I know we gotta go to your doctor. I'm going to mess up on the details, but you know he became the gangster icon because Larry Davis.
Yeah.
The
cops came to get him.
Yeah.
And surrounded him.
Yep.
And he shot his way out. And he was on a run for a number of, I don't know how, like days or weeks or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But it just led to certain unraveling. You know, they ultimately, they put him behind bars and all the rest of it and beat the shit out of him. I think they almost crippled him, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But the idea of it was, he was one of many that a lot of the police in that area were shaking down, and they were trying to put a hit on him. But he did a whole Superman thing, and you wouldn't believe it. Again, similar.
Believe it. That's right.
You're like, he's surrounded some Hollywood shit. He got his ass out of there.
Jumping out of windows and stuff.
It was exactly.
And then, of course, he gets stabbed to death after a long prison sentence when he's set to get out. That was some shady stuff as well. But and so what we'll have to do is get Daruba on here to talk about how he was locked up with Larry Davis. And they actually met. So we need to get Daruba on here to tell that story.
We need the scoop.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of stories and scoops, I don't know, where is he in the ancient ruins somewhere? Ear doctor?
Why did he go to Rome? Why?
Hey, I had to take another flight out and go handle some business, man. I got another top 5 for y'all. I don't know if y'all ready for it.
But
I had to come over here to get the top 5.
After that last one, you should be over there. Once the reviews come in, you're going to be in town.
You know what this is behind me? This is the Roman Empire. I'm gonna leave it there, and we're gonna go into the break.
Okay. It's the remix.
Yeah. What's good, everybody? Welcome out to the Remix Morning Show. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. And please make sure y'all hit that like button. Make sure y'all hit that subscribe button. Make sure y'all hit that bell. Make sure y'all share it and tell a friend to tell a friend. It is on again right here on Black Power Media, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Tuesday through Thursday. Now, we're going to get to another top 5. And you're like, why is this dude in Rome in front of the ruins and stuff like that? Because I wanted to get to top 5 Europeans that came up of Black culture. Are y'all ready for this one? Let's go. All right. So we're going to start off with no other than, just because, Iggy Azalea. That's right. Iggy Azalea, this woman looking like a fine little Dominican right there. I ain't gonna front. Iggy Azalea came through, and I mean, she was like, hip hop. Oh, I'm gonna come over here and do this thing. And actually was one of the white women in hip hop that made some big money off of it. So we're gonna start off with Iggy Azalea. Big up to Iggy for coming and doing her thing with Black culture. Next, since we're talking about artists, why not go to our good old brother, straight from the D, Eminem? Oh yes, he definitely came in hip hop and said, you know what? Let me go ahead and get this money. And he came up big time with that. Who else are we gonna go to next? How about Debbie Harry? That's right. She came and she was doing her punk rock stuff, Blondie and everything. But when Fab Five Freddy came and said, yo, I got this hip hop thing, spit this rhyme and rapture, man, that's when she really blew up and came up off of hip hop big time once again. And no other than one of the godfathers of coming and taking Black culture. That's right, Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley, do I even have to say anything? I mean, Chuck Berry's over there like, this dude. Yeah, that dude. Now, last but not least, the biggest top number one guy is no other than King James. That's right. King James King James Bible. That's the one I'm talking about. This dude looked at black culture and said, these guys are very spiritual. Let me take advantage of that. Ha! Spirituality, religion, bam, got him. That's right. So King James would have to be top on this list, and that is what it is for today. So let me get back to the Remix Morning Crew. You know how we do. All right. Okay. I'm getting problems with. Wait a minute. I don't like these faces already.
I don't like these faces. How you had to go to Rome after this were like the American whites who obviously came from
Were
Europe,
any of them Italian?
None were Italian.
Was it Iggy Italian?
I don't know what she is.
Me neither.
I mean, I don't think she knows what
She said she looked Dominican.
She did in that picture.
After T.I. dressed her up, that's what she looked like. Let's not forget that. That was a T.I. production.
I think it was an insult to the Dominicans.
Yeah, Iggy was a T.I. production.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's how he made some extra dough. That's the way like Dre made that money off of Eminem.
Yeah.
T.I. made that money off of Iggy.
So
wow.
I mean, okay, in your defense, Ear Doctor, you didn't say like the top 5 most favorite or the top 5 best. I mean, you just said that the top 5 Europeans that made it off of, black culture. Oh, okay. And in your defense, okay, I'm not gonna be too mad because
thank you.
Yeah.
But how does Blondie get up in the top 5?
I can see
Blondie
that.
Was
tell him, Jackie.
I can see that because there was a whole lot of people who trotted out this crazy line that Blondie was instrumental in making hip hop famous.
That's right.
Because of Rapture. And it was like there's this whole like argument between white hip hop heads and other people who don't know any better that like, no, Blondie she didn't make anything famous. Yeah. She just not in the world of hip hop.
She popularized it. Pop.
Right. She mainstreamed it, which means she introduced it to white people who listen to her music.
And she's credited with having the first #1 hip hop record on Billboard because of that, which is. But my kid is here now, so I can't say the word I want to use.
Right. Yes.
This to me is more about the point of the problem with the hip hop historical narrative, that from the beginning, it has been turned into a product and commercialized and weaponized. So whether it was Sylvia Robinson being the first to make it a contractual arrangement and rip off artists despite being a black woman, and creating the Sugar Hill Gang out of nothing, and creating this fake rap, giving people names and renaming people. She did. I mean, she was overseeing all of that stuff. To this thing with Blondie, where she helps. I don't think she had her own musical career. It was the way she was used and played a role in doing what you all described, and linking up with Fab Five Freddy and bringing rap, welcoming it into white audiences, which is what the industry has always wanted. And a lot of rappers, despite their claims, they want that white audience because that's how you make the money. So, I mean, it's been a commercial, mess from the beginning, but no Tina Marie. Like, no, she would have, really
come on. Tina get a pass to the picnic. Tina gets a pass. She fuck with Rick James, son. Come on.
I mean,
you ain't regular. You fucking with Rick James on a regular. I'm sorry.
And he just said Kamal got his kid on his lap.
He
just said that. Like right now.
My bad.
Twice.
Hey,
sorry, baby.
But I'm saying, my number one. Did y'all weren't expecting that one, was y'all?
Well, I mean, I wasn't, because I don't really see the connection.
King James.
What I think of, he created a branch of Christianity so he could divorce and remarry and break away from the Pope and the Catholic Church and all of that. And he is sometimes said to have brought in Shakespeare to rewrite the Bible to make it hot. but I don't see how
The
I'm not
culture,
catching.
culture, spirituality, African people, culture, spirituality, knowing that they are very spiritual and writing a book that makes them be like, okay, we will do what you say.
Well,
You are cool. You are a master, and we shall do what the master say. And go ahead, don't worry, we all going to heaven one day.
but I mean, I think that happened after the translation of the King James Bible. He did that to control the Europeans and the
That's
stuff
how I
in Europe.
understood it.
Yeah.
Don't be kind. That's how it was. That's how it was.
I'm saying,
But-
Interpretation of history.
I'm saying it's still being
the point
used.
is,
Somebody in the chat said, "What about Jesus?" And y'all, Jesus,
Jesus was Mexican.
Jesus was Palestinian. Doggone it.
He said Mexican.
Joseph Ben Pandira with his brown skin and locks.
Oh my gosh!
And in fact, he would have been
Jesus alone.
skin like burnt bronze.
I mean,
remember
come
that
on.
part.
Hair like
with
hair like
hair like
wool.
wool.
Listen now.
Hey,
Blacker than black. I take it back to my origins.
well, that's my top 5 for the day, y'all. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.
All right, wow, yeah. Woo.
Oh my gosh.
All right, well, let's we might as well get to some map slapping and see what's going on in the world. The updates, the modern day King Jameses and all their machinations.
Yeah, let's
get into some of that here
try
in the
to be
remake.
serious journalists to slap that map.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Remix Morning Show here on Black Power Media. Just so everybody knows, in the next hour, we got a number of interviews coming up, a number of guests coming through to talk about. Actually, you said it looks like you got Pascal Robert coming on to talk about the racial wealth gap. I got some of the folks from the AAPRP podcasting community coming on to talk about revolutionary African perspectives. So a lot coming up in the next hour. Looking forward to all of that. But Jackie, it looks like you got a very interesting story, at least one interesting story on the run sheet. If you want to start with that,
you know what? You should go ahead and start because I forgot that I put a story in the front sheet.
Well, there we go. And there it is, everybody. Welcome back to the Remix Morning Show.
Jackie LaFont is not always on her game, y'all. Sorry.
It's all good. It is all good. So one thing, and I'll admit here, speaking of not being fully on the game, I did not get into this story in detail as much as I would have liked, and I will revisit this. But I did see this. This was sent to me, and honestly, I can't remember. Shout out and thanks to everybody that sends me all these stories, knowing that they would pique my interest and be of value to the program. Unfortunately, I don't have enough substance to bring to the story beyond some of the headline here, that the claim of the Roosevelt Institute is that canceling student debt would bolster the economic recovery and reduce the racial wealth gap. As a headline alone, I'm happy to go with this claim if it will help people in power actually do something about the student loan debt. And I know that there's been a discussion now that Biden's group will extend the cessation of payments for a few more months. Anyway, so I have seen similar claims, for instance, like universal health care would help Black businesses, and the like. But at least what I have here is that it says here, even in normal times, student loan payments deepen existing racial wealth disparities without any significant fiscal benefits. But after a severe recession, restarting student loan payments may also dampen our economic recovery. Prior to the pause, student loan payments drained a monthly average of $393 from student loan borrowers' budgets, reducing household disposable income and savings. So that's one way of approaching it. And I would have to actually get into the study to learn more. But one way of approaching it is again, similar to the claim about universal health care, helping Black businesses who would not then be responsible for the healthcare benefits of their employees, although most Black businesses don't really have employees to be worried about in that way. The claim here is similar, at least to some of my other broader claims and interests, that a massive, as was the case with Dr. King and many other greats, a massive redistribution from the federal level down is what is required to actually, if the goal is to close these so-called gaps or divides in racial wealth and income, to take place. So something massive like canceling student debt, which would then allow people who are spending close to $400 a month on average to put that back into the economy, because obviously we're not going to save that money. We're going to spend it on something else, maybe even a Black-owned business, and that would help. So anyway, I hope somebody in power is listening to this and would at least make the argument in the way that they would need to make it at that level, to say it's not to actually help poor people, but it's to help the business community and the owners of the economy to get more money back into the economy by letting people not have to pay student debt and to go shopping instead. So,
I mean, I when I look at and this is actually some part of what Pascal and I are going to talk about a little later on, the whole focus on the racial wealth gap and let me not give too much of the conversation away, but the conversation around canceling student loan debt does have serious implications for Black student loan borrowers, right? Because Black student loan borrowers carry a significant portion of that debt, more significant than white student loan borrowers, and they carry more debt and with higher interest rates and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that is true. But at the same time, it's like not everybody Black has student loan debt, because not everybody Black went to college. So you're talking about a whole, working class, a set of working class and poor Black people who are not affected by student loan debt at all. So while canceling student loan debt is absolutely necessary for the economic well-being and honestly psychological well-being of people who have to deal with that additional debt, like for the next 20, 30 years, that's longer than a car note, yo. I mean, that's like my car note. People paying like $400 a month, that's more than my car note. That'll be paid off in like 2-3 years, I think. And people are paying student loan debt off, and they're 20 years graduated from college, and they're still paying off student loans. That is a type of not only economic stress, but psychological stress on people in an economy where people went to school, they took out these loans to go to college to get a better job so they could have a better life. And then they graduate from college with all of this debt, and they can't afford to buy a home anywhere in this country. They're not getting the job with the big money that they thought they were going to get. So, I mean, canceling student debt would be a big economic and psychological boost for people who are affected by it. At the same time, I think we need to be careful that we're not having this conversation and believing that canceling student debt is going to fix the economic disparities that all working class and Black people are, because that's just not true at all. It will help people who are dealing with that with student loan debt, and it needs to be canceled because education should be a human right and it should be free. But it's not going to close the racial wealth gap, as they say.
No, especially when I believe, if I have it right, there was a report the other day that said that of the 2020 college graduates, upwards of 40 to 50% of them are unemployed. So it's not even an issue of you're not going to earn enough to pay back the student loan debt. I mean, my wife and I, for instance, are gainfully employed, a two income household. We will never pay off our debt. I mean, it will never get paid off. And you know, but if you're getting all this debt and getting a degree and still not, and then you're not only earning enough to pay it back, but you don't have a job at all,
right?
You know, then
that's
clearly there's a.
I was going to add quickly. I've spent 20-something years running away from my debt, and I think that's what a lot of people also do. Right? You pay it for a little while, and then you put it in. What's the term they use when you
forbearance or
forbearance?
Exactly. All of that. Depending on which one they want you to check that year. I was like, we'll forbear this year. We'll do that this year. You know, that kind of thing. You have, you know, it's so weird. Because of the destabilization of the American economy, it's offered more opportunity for me to defer also, because there's all these rationales. So instead of just canceling the debt that they know that the federal government knows it doesn't need to collect, right? Is a drop in the bucket. Instead of just canceling it, Biden does this little football kick it down the road thing, just kick the can down the road thing. I'm sorry. And just says you got another 6 months. So I'm still holding it over your head. I'm still not going to do what the minimum I said I would do. I'm still not going to do what many people are calling for me to do. And I completely agree that the politics of it, although the economic value of it may not be tremendous, but obviously for those families who are, again, we spoke about this yesterday, who are working class families, people who first time they went to school and they're using it to build up their career or make some money. It's a burden. It's a heavy burden that should be lifted, that folks should not have to pay.
Hey, my favorite example is when one of the representatives of our loan companies literally told me, one of either you or your wife should quit your job so that your household income drops to a point where you would qualify for some other program. So I just started laughing. I said, I mean, that's so take the loans to get the degrees, to get the job, to have the career, to then quit the career, to drop below a threshold so that we can pay off the loan that trained us, that educate us to train us to do the job we should not do anymore. That is a collapsing society. Even if you wanted to save this thing, that don't make any sense. And that's what I told the woman on the phone. Like, I don't even care about this country like that. I think you probably do. This doesn't even make any sense. This doesn't make any sense, you know, but you know, all right. You know,
but then the wild thing about this whole thing, you know, about a student loan debt, we also don't talk about the fact that all student loan debt is not owned by the federal government. It's not, there is private, there is Sallie Mae.
That's right.
You know, and they're predators. So people who owe Sallie Mae debt and other private student loan debt, they don't get any relief. They're still being hunted down by the collection agencies. So I mean, this whole system needs to be just burned down, and we need to build something better from the ashes, because this is nuts. This is ridiculous.
So speaking of nuts and ridiculous, I came across this. This was also something sent to me the other day that I'm not actually sure is as nuts and ridiculous as the person who sent it to me thought I might take it as. So let's just check out what Dr. Umar Johnson has had to say recently about Bitcoin.
Like the digital currency and African revolution. If all African people go to a digital currency, the revolution will not be financed. I'm going to say it again. If all African people go to a digital currency, the revolution will not be financed. And the reason, if all African people go to a digital currency, the revolution will not be financed, is because you give the white power structure the ability to push one button and shut down the whole movement. I'm going to say it again. Where would the Kenya, Mau Mau, Dedan Kimathi, where would the Land and Freedom Army be fighting against the British if they had to get all of their resources by using the Bitcoin? Where would the South African struggle against apartheid have been if they had to use Bitcoin to buy all of their resources? Where would the American African struggle for civil rights and Black power be if we only had a digital currency? What I'm saying is I'm not against digital currency for everyday use. But if we go to a 100% digital currency global market for African people, there will be no revolution.
I felt like I was listening to Dr. Ball speak.
I know.
No.
I was so confused.
There
not
are
mad at that opinion.
similarities. Look, I mean, in general, well, obviously in general, overall, I agree with that point. Where I find some hesitation is in I'm wondering, and I'd have to think about that. I'll ask you all, and we can think about this, going forward. To what extent is financing struggle necessary and important, and to what extent did it play a role historically in these struggles, even the ones that Dr. Johnson is referencing? In other words, there is this overall argument that we got to get money so we can have the struggle, and I tend to believe the exact opposite, that we don't need money to organize, politically educate, to make movements, to become threatening, et cetera, and so forth. But at the same time, I was trying to think, I don't know to what extent that it was required that to fund revolutions, that there be some sort of financial arrangement. So I understand, like, obviously we know there's histories of the Soviet Union, of Cuba supplying weapons and arms, et cetera, to various struggles. But was this done with some sort of payment plan involved? Was it understood? Did Cabral have to come up with 10,000 in whatever cash to get weapons for? In other words, I'm not really sure to what extent but in general, I do agree. And the last thing, just quickly, I would say is that I thought of this as a generational kind of argument too, because going back to our generation, it has always been argued we don't want to get to a cashless society because it will take the ability for us to have an underground economy out of our hands. But nowadays we're being told by many younger people and paid older people that we need digital currency to catch up. But anyway, what did you all think about this?
I was going to say quickly, most struggles, revolutionary struggles, there's, we call financing. There's been, whether or not there is reciprocity, as in some struggles had to pay for, particularly early on, right? Before they got support from other nation states which were on the opposite side, or whoever they were fighting. They had to buy guns. They had to get weapons. They outfitted uniforms a lot of times. So there was ways in which they had cash poured into them, or resources poured into them, so that they could buy these things, even things like food. A lot of, you read about some of the history, and some folks, what we call, taxing middle class or petty bourgeois stores or businesses, which went back to feed sort of the revolution or grow armies and so forth. So some of that definitely taking a percentage of what a farmer grew and terming it as a donation to the movement, right? So, and then there's the outright trading for resources or in the short term, getting weapons from other nation states. And then later, if they win their revolution, those nation states expecting those new governments to trade with them. So there is always some level of financial resources that either have been taken, procured, traded, and or paid for. So I think in that respect, it's not just a sort of a revolutionary dream usually where everybody just volunteers, right? There's going to be some things that have to be structured, and there's going to be some resources that are needed for that. So I say all that to say that, yeah, so I have far more agreement with it in terms of, it's not so much that I think that we need money, the current structure, particularly of the way the so-called American movement operates, where we have this, we're going to get money from these foundations, which is going to fund revolutionary activity. That's not happening, because the moment they think there is a revolutionary activity happening, that funding will begin to get cut off. Right. So in that, don't expect that at all to be the case in terms of how resources come to our community.
Yeah, and the whole reliance on cryptocurrency as a revolutionary way to fund the movement or how to fund the movement. I mean, you need to understand that just like the stock market, a very few people already own most of the, value of cryptocurrency. So, and then you have to have traditional money in order to invest in cryptocurrency, right? You have to have the money to invest, even if you don't have, what is the value of a Bitcoin now? Like $23,000 for one
I think it's
coin.
even more than that. I think it's like 50,000 at this point.
Oh, is it 50 now? I mean,
I think so.
Yeah, so in order to realize the kind of monumental growth to turn that 50,000 into 100,000, over a day or two, you need $50,000 cash in US, currency in order to invest in cryptocurrency. So, I mean, this is, and then I think that because we know now that, I hope most people know that now, that there are very few people who own the value of most of the cryptocurrency that exists out there. And we know now the environmental impact, the very destructive environmental impact that crypto mining has, and the exploitive nature of it. I hope we realize that as soon as, let's say Black folks were able to corner the market on crypto, do you understand how fast that shit would crash? I mean, do you realize that if all of the revolutionary and radical Black folks figured out a way to snatch up the cryptocurrency from the folks who have it, do you not understand how fast all of a sudden the value of that stuff would just plummet? And then they would talk about how, it's tied to, we can't allow this to continue because of the criminal activity and all that kind of stuff. We cannot rely on, first of all, another financial vehicle that requires a level of access to obtain it that many of our people, that most of the masses don't have, in terms of money and the computing power to even mine for crypto, right? And then we can't rely on, funding the revolution with this alternative form of financing that's even more unstable than the dollar, because another group of people could just come by and say, whoa, too many of these groups of people are investing in this, and too many of them have more of a vested interest in it, so we don't want it. We don't want to value it anymore, and then they pull their money out, and then it becomes worthless. So
well, I mean, that was the one thing that I
yeah.
thought was missing from, and I don't know, this was just a Q&A response from Umar Johnson, so I don't know to what extent he gets into this elsewhere, but there was no explanation of how the actual economy works. So it was just an argument against the ability to fund revolutions, as if that was actually the goal of most of the Black people involving themselves in investing in crypto. But it doesn't explain the economy. So to Jackie, to your points, again, what I keep not hearing in people's discussions or seeing in the stuff I've been reading and rabbit holing is, how does this create redistributed wealth? How does this redefine wealth? How does this give political power to the powerless? How all of the things that are required in an actual revolution. I don't see this in the arguments. It's all of this. It's just a lot of other sort of.
And you never will, because that's not the intent of it, right? The intent is to use that language to get us to buy the cryptocurrency, to get us to get on board with it. And it's, I mean, that's the common thing. They'll use the language that we are so in love with: liberation, freedom, self-determination, unity. Like, they'll use the language, but they know damn well they have no intent of doing anything other than making a profit for themselves. And that's the real goal. But for them, it's all marketing. So what will get the Black community inspired by this? Let's use the language that inspires Black folks: fighting for our rights, fighting for freedom, fighting for liberation, being independent, quasi-independent, away from systems that have been oppressive. These days, folks will use anything. Nothing's off the table anymore, because people have seen successfully, going back to the talk about funding stuff, people have now seen that we've reached this level of being able to say things that in past times sounded radical, but liberals themselves will accept them. And so people have said, we can use this language in other places. But I don't want to act like it's that new, because, you know, back again in the 70s, when they were encouraging us to put all our money in black banks, you can go back and you can research and see similar ads that banks were using about how this was black freedom, right? And all the way up to today, where that language is still used, where we deposit in black banks by itself, somehow we've taken a step towards liberation. And so I think they're more than willing to play with language that they think is going to inspire us to give our money away.
So just quickly, because I know the lights are going off, and Ear Doctor is set to come back here in a second. But there was something, and it was my mistake, Jackie. It wasn't that a story you had put there. I misread the run sheet. It was something that Kalanji put there.
I be doing stuff and I forget, and don't worry.
So, but I did at least want to bring up this story that he shared with us. 5 in custody after Representative Mary Gay Scanlon was carjacked at gunpoint in Philadelphia. She was unharmed. Her spokeswoman said 5 people were later arrested in Delaware, where her Acura was found. It says here that Scanlon was carjacked at gunpoint in Philadelphia on Wednesday afternoon. The incident occurred around 2:45 p.m. at FDR Park in South Philadelphia, where Scanlon had been attending a meeting earlier. She thanks the Philadelphia Police Department for their swift response. 2 armed men approached Scanlon and demanded the keys to her vehicle, a blue 2017 Acura MDX. Scanlon surrendered her the keys, and one of the 2 men drove off with the car. The second man entered a separate vehicle and followed the first man. And then they found it, of course, in Newark. It's like, no, I'm just saying, it says Newark, Delaware. My bad. It says Newark, Delaware. But around 9 p.m. and the 5 people inside of it were taken into custody. So, okay.
5 whole people had carjacking a car. That's, I mean,
an Acura?
An Acura MDX. Isn't that and then they sat in the car, apparently. They were all sitting in the car.
In Delaware. I mean,
but this is the role of the police. It is somebody who is a part of the political establishment. No resources were spared. That because, you know, in order to track down that Acura, they were looking at traffic cameras. They immediately went into overdrive. And so again, if your car got carjacked, and you would not get that car back. You were going along, they were taking that report. Okay, we'll get back to you. We happen to find it in some other way. That's how you get it. But you certainly ain't getting that car back in a matter of hours, and the rest are going to be made. So that I mean, you know, obviously, you know, you don't want anybody to get carjacked. But you said this is the role of the police. And when it's an establishment figure, if she was a millionaire, if she was even white middle class or whatever, overdrive in terms of spending resources to quote unquote solve that crime. Anybody else?
Hey, and to your point, the story says Larry Krasner, the Pennsylvania DA, has said, you know, we're going to do everything possible to catch the robbers. This is the same guy that will not do anything possible to get Mumia out. You know what I mean? So or to have helped even Maroon. So like to your point, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, an Acura, really, y'all? Come on, you deserve better, fam. Come on, do better.
I don't know what an Acura MDX is.
I think she set it up for the insurance.
Is this a Juicy Smollett? Did she Juicy Smollett this?
Story. I think she set it up personally.
Oh man, if she Juicy Smollett, and I hope that does become the adjective or whatever, the adverb or whatever, you get Juicy Smollett a story. In fact, I got a couple students trying to Juicy Smollett their grades, their stories about their grades. This is what had happened, and that is the post-grade season right now. I got another email this morning. This is what had happened, and I'm like, you Juicy Smollett, you Juicy. Anyway, the Ear Doctor in his fly, I was gonna say that was a Cosby sweater, but it was a little bit monotone for a Cosby sweater. He's matching it with the background. He's zenned out. What's going on, man?
Listen, it's the holiday season right now. You know what I'm saying? And it's a lot of people going through a lot of stuff. So I felt like, you know what, we Black Power Media. Let's let people know some different things that they could do that's dealing with depression at this time of year. So I had to bring in a good doctor. So not just me, I got another doctor. So hang
Mm.
around and check out.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Nat King Ball.
Yeah. What's good, everybody? What's good, everybody? As you can see, I'm nice and zenned out right now, but I was getting into it's holiday season. We got a lot of people that's dealing with loss, dealing with being by themselves, dealing with this whole COVID issue, and it's a lot going on. So I was like, I need some tips that we could give out to the people that's dealing with depression. So I brought in the good Dr. Brian McGregor.
What's
Dr. Brian
happening, brother?
McGregor. What's good,
How you
man? How
doing?
you doing today?
You can hear me okay?
I hear you great. Great.
Awesome.
Real quick, would you let them know what all you do in psychology and stuff?
Absolutely. So I'm Brian McGregor. I am a therapist at Acoma Counseling and Consulting, which is a Black-owned a counseling and consulting agency in Decatur. I am an adjunct clinical professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at the Morehouse School of Medicine. I'm a self-care consultant. I wear a couple of different hats, but I really appreciate you inviting me on to talk about this important issue.
Hey, I'm digging the box fade, man. I'm loving it, man.
You hadn't seen me since I got it, right?
Nice. So yeah, like I was saying, a lot of people are dealing with depression. They're dealing with the whole COVID issue, holiday season, not having their loved ones around. What's some tips you could give people to get their mind right? And
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and I'm glad you prefaced it with that. Some of those background issues in terms of the variant, the Omicron, the Omarion, all of that is very scary for a lot of people. This might be the first holiday that you're experiencing without a loved one who was here at the table playing spades, who was around during the last holiday season, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. And so you also have things like seasonal affective disorder, which has a lot of symptoms that are similar to depression that happen around this time of year. So there are a couple of things that I think can be helpful. So one, you want to pay a lot more attention. I would say prioritize your physical and mental well-being. Especially now, making sure you're eating the right things. That's a part of your diet. Getting that exercise in, getting adequate sleep. All of those things are important to prioritize, particularly at this point. If you already have a mental health treatment plan, pay attention to what's on that plan and execute those things. I would also say scale things down, fall back. You don't have to go to all the Christmas parties. They might be expecting you to make that dish. You might be expected to host, getting gifts for all kind of different folks. That's a lot to have to sort of manage that gets added to our plates during the holiday season. And so it's easier to manage if you scale back on some of these things. Keep it simple for yourself during this time. And another thing I would say is let people know what your needs are. It's easier to manage expectations and set those boundaries. You can't do all the things that people may be expecting. Folks might not know that you're going through certain things. A lot of what we experience is sort of in silence, unfortunately. But it's important to share with folks. Hey, not going to be able to do this, that, and the third. Appreciate the invitation. Just come up with some sort of quick ways to communicate what your needs are and what you need to be able to get through this season. And being able to manage those symptoms. I think if you do those things, you'll be in pretty good shape, be able to get through this without a big hit to your mental health and well-being.
My brother, Dr. Brian McGregor, thank you for coming out and giving us these tips. How can we reach out to you and follow what you're doing?
So I am at Work to Heal on Twitter. The number to the Acoma Counseling and Consulting Agency is 404-378-7309 if you would like some, professional services. But I definitely thank you for the opportunity. I'm also at Dr. That's Dr. B. McGregor on Instagram as well.
Okay, there you go. You know how everybody is.
You know how it goes.
Hey, appreciate you, and have a happy holiday, safe one, and this new year is going to be great for all of us. So let's get it.
Absolutely. 2022, here we come.
No doubt. Peace, bro.
Peace.
Yeah,
right on. Shout out to Dr. McGregor, and I just got word from my man Essie Ramu that Dr. McGregor is what's the word I'm looking for? He is what's the word I'm looking? Down by law is what it is. But Essie Ramu said that's that dude. Shout out to having him on. The Black Psychological World. The radical Black Psychological World spoke up and said congratulations. So shout out to Ear Doctor for having him on, and shout out to Dr. McGregor for coming on and doing that good work. And shout out to AB-Psy, Association of Black Psychologists, trying to do that good work. So anyway, appreciate that. Yeah.
No doubt. I just know a lot of people going through some stuff, and us as Black Power Media, we definitely got to find different ways to reach out and help all we can. So we have a platform, we're going to use it right for y'all. So appreciate everybody for always tuning in, and keep coming, and we're gonna keep giving y'all what y'all need.
Right on.
Catch y'all next break.
I think it's also important that we remind people that we don't need to be all in our egos when it comes to getting help. And I'm talking to myself right now. I'm reminding myself we got to get out our egos, and we need to so I appreciate that work anyway.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, for me, that was a nice surprise, and I really appreciate. That's why I appreciate this this platform so much. I think we understand that the problems that we face are more than economic, they're more than political. We have to deal with a whole lot of trauma from all of those things, and regular life happens to all of us. And this is the first Christmas for me without Abdus. So I'm not. I want people to know that it's okay to not be okay, and to still kind of just try to get through every day, because that's kind of what I do. And I mean, for some people, grieving looks different. Depression looks different. And if you're able to, work during the day and even laugh and joke and smile and still have a broken heart, and that's okay. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. But it's all right not to be okay, especially during this season, because this sucks. It's terrible. And, it's a one day at a time thing. And you all and my job are really helping me deal with it, believe it or not, because I don't have to sit alone with my feelings, all the time and my grief. But everybody doesn't have that. So if you can get help, if you can talk to somebody, please do, because you don't have to go through this by yourself. And no, we don't want people to suffer through this season. It's difficult for many reasons for a lot of people. So I really appreciated that Ear Doctor segment.
Absolutely. And I just want to add one other thing, that we also, don't have to any longer be worried about, we have to deal with a therapist who's white, or a therapist who's not a revolutionary, or a therapist who's just trying to situate us to work well within this system. There are people doing the work from radical African different perspectives to say we can attempt some healing outside of the Western world. So anyway, definitely appreciate all of that, and appreciate you, Jackie, and everybody else struggling through all of these difficult times. So but as we continue on, we do have a couple guests coming up and to address these problems from maybe a different perspective, in terms of healing politically, socially, economically, spiritually, etc. So we're going to talk to in this next segment, we're going to talk to at least one half of an Atlanta-based community radio, All African People's Revolutionary Party podcast, Revolutionary African Perspectives. So stick around here at the Remix Morning Show, Black Power Media. Back in a second. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Welcome back to the Remix Morning Show here at Black Power Media. Going to take the next couple of minutes to talk to our guest here, Mosey K. Platt, who is, I misspoke, is one part of a triumvirate of hosts who put together the Revolutionary African Perspectives show Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. right down there in the good Atlanta on the community radio station WFRG with the same wonderful numeric number or dial settings as my beloved people up here at WPFW, and that is 89.3 FM. So shout out to you. Welcome. Good morning, Mosey. Thanks for joining us. Greetings.
Greetings, Dr. Ball. Thank you. Just one correction is RFG, Radio Free Georgia.
What'd I say?
You got that.
Don't matter what I say. You said it right way. My bad. I got it backwards. Thank you for the correction. I wanted to actually start with, before we get into the politics, I actually wanted to start quickly with the community radio piece. Sure. Community radio is where I got my own media journalism and broadcasting starts years ago, unsanctioned. What I also liked about it, unsanctioned, pirated radio as well in DC. And shout out to Mbana Kentako and that whole, African underground pirate radio network of folks doing that work, who had been doing that work. But could you talk a little bit about what community radio means, and even what it might mean in this digital media age?
I think it's important for community radio because, when you join WRFG, they take you through a broadcast class if you want to get on air, right? You got to be certified, FCC rules and all of that. And the first thing they teach you is how media has been consolidated in this country, right? And I think it's something that, if you have some consciousness, that media is consolidated, but you don't know how consolidated until you go through this class and they put it on paper in front of you, right? And they show you references of all the news articles that talk about it, right? And so when you realize that the media is controlled, and that was, to be fair, our broadcast class material is a little dated, right? So it's even more consolidated now than when they put that material together. And so when you realize that a small group of people determine what media is available to consume by the people, well, then if the people actually want to be heard, then there has to be community radio, and there has to be, or stuff online, I guess, podcast or the new pirate radio, I guess. But if you want to get, Nkrumah breaks it down, or in the AAPRP, we call it, there's a people class and there's the anti-people class. It's a Sekou Touré put that out there, right? If you want to hear from the people, you need community radio, and you're gonna have to go get it yourself on the internet. All we're gonna get from commercial or mainstream media is the views of the anti-people class.
Right on. So you do this show, or Revolutionary African Perspectives, rather, and you mentioned the AAPRP. I wanted to, a broad question of what is the Revolutionary African Perspective, or what comprises Revolutionary African Perspectives, and how does that show up in your show's work?
Sure. So the show was started by, well, that's not true. We got brought into the show by an older member of the party, Sobukwe Shakora, who was living in Atlanta for a long time, and then moved to Kenya. And so he kind of set the premise for the show. And let me just pull up our little profile. So what we say, it's we try to break the show down very simple because it makes it easier to plan it. But it's a show about Africa and African people's victories, resistance, and oppression, with a humanist, nationalist, class, and gender lens. So we deal with stories from the continent and throughout the diaspora, and we try to look at it through those four perspectives. And then we try to break, each show has 3 segments. And so first we talk about an issue, and we talk about the oppression of the issue. Then we talk about the struggle surrounding the issue. And then we talk about victories that have been won fighting the issue, or that we expect to win fighting the issue. So that's where we try to end from that humanist, nationalist, class, and gender perspective.
Right on. And is everybody involved a member of the AAPRP? Is that part of the mission of the show, to be a spokes, like a mouthpiece for that organization?
It's a good question. So, you know, if you want to say the quiet part out loud, yes, part of the show is propaganda for the party. That's our kind of our main programming in the Atlanta area. But no, we're not all AAPRP members. So myself and my wife are from the AAPRP, and then we have a co-host from MXGM, Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. And so the content for the show was pretty much split half and half. When we're really on our P's and Q's, sometimes it may slant one way or another depending on how busy one of us gets with the planning and the ability to get guests on the show.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the issues that you all are dealing with down there in Atlanta now, or from Atlanta, I should say, because I know you cover a lot of the diaspora, and I'm wondering if you know what has been, you know, some of the African perspectives of you know, the world today. That you all been covering, that, you know, anyway,
yeah, a big thing. So, you know, we just came through an election season, so, you know, we did a show on Atlanta politics and Georgia politics at large too, because you know, our co-host Yusi started working with Black Voters Matter Georgia, so we have a lot of perspective on that. So African politics in Georgia, and the Atlanta election, because, you know, there's a mayoral election. And so that's been interesting because they try to shove, you know, we talk about the people class and the anti-people class. They tried to shove Kasim Reed back down to people's throats, who was the mayor before the current mayor, and was kind of left, you know, in a shroud of corruption. They tried to put him back up as if by name recognition alone, you know, he was going to be the people's candidate, even though he's running on a platform of more cops, and more cops, right? While the city is fighting against Cop City, which I know has been talked about, you know, in Black Power media a lot. So that was kind of crazy. The anti-people's class thought that they could just shove Kasim Reed back down the throats, and he, you know, was summarily dismissed. So that was actually encouraging to see the people, you know, resist with that level of consciousness. We actually did a show recently about this documentary by a Haitian director called the Madame Sarah, and it's about this women's working class in Haiti that they're essentially middle management. Or actually logistics. They're the supply chain for food in Haiti. They get food from the farms into the urban areas. And they run, and the roots of it go all the way back to slavery, about how this working class women end up being created. But we talked about that documentary, and it's important for Atlanta because Coca-Cola plays such a large presence in Haiti, which is headquartered in Atlanta. So we've done a couple shows on Haiti in the last couple months, and then of course we have an alliance with the Black Alliance for Peace. So we've done some shows on AFRICOM, local policing issues in Atlanta, and we're trying to do a show coming up. We're putting together a show on gentrification and what's going on in the Atlanta University Center with the Atlanta Eugene Collective and the fight there, the housing issues they're having on campus, the housing issues going on in the West End where the AUC is located, and that struggle.
No, hey, look, really appreciate it. I definitely appreciate the work that you all do. I'm a big fan and have for a long time of community radio, of you know, doing that kind of work. I do think at some point, we don't have time now, but and he's not here. I think you were saying it was one of your comrades. I would love to engage in conversation around Black Voters Matter and its relationship to these struggles, because I feel like there's some contradictions there. But
yes. So I'm the electoral politics hater on the show, and so he does the other side of the issue.
Yeah. So it's good. I mean, it's good to have, you know, we all don't have to agree. We can, you know. But listen, Mosey K. Platt, I really appreciate you and the work that you all are doing down there. And we just been wanting to put a little bit of a spotlight on folks we see doing good media work, and definitely wanted to have you all come on, and we hope to have you back again. We definitely encourage people to check out the Revolutionary African Perspectives in terms of your show and just in general in life. And appreciate you coming through and taking a few minutes this morning to rock with us.
Appreciate it. I watch the channel all the time. Glad that it's here, because now y'all got me off C-SPAN, so I don't need to watch C-SPAN anymore.
That's exactly the point. Thank you for that, and we'll look to continue to build with you and have you and your comrades back on and talk more. But anyway,
and if anybody wants to check out the show, they can catch it on social media, WRFG_RAP, and that has links to where you can listen to the show live or on demand.
Right on. Appreciate you. All right, everybody. Thanks to Brother Platt and the good work that he and his comrades are doing. I want to again just give them a couple minutes to highlight that work here at the Remix Morning Show. And we're going to continue with that work coming up here in just a minute. So don't go anywhere. Much more coming up here at the Remix Morning Show, Black Power Media. Peace, everybody. All right, everybody, back again at the Remix Morning Show. Again, shout out to the comrades in the APRP and more broadly speaking, doing that good community media work, emancipatory journalism at its best. And anyway, and Jackie, I know you got.
I'm going to interject really quick, but we should. I'm going to strive to get. We talked. You mentioned Black Voters Matter, so I'm going to strive to get like Cliff Albright, who we know. Who used to be a member, or maybe still considers himself a member of the Malcolm X grassroots movement, started a party in Alabama, and an independent Black party in Alabama at one point with his wife, April. And he is one of the co-founders of Black Voters Matter, and definitely engages in radical discussions and politics around electoral politics. I think it would be good to have that discussion and see where there's, debate about the strategy and what they see as their long-term goals. And I definitely think he'd be up and willing to do that. So I'm gonna try to make that happen.
Oh, I would love to do that. And because great. I want to win him over to the after party idea. That would be my goal. Yep. So definitely let's do that. And we do have to engage. I mean, these contradictions, agreements, disagreements around voting and all that kind of stuff, because that becomes a dominant focal point for many of our folks in terms of struggle anyway. So we do have to engage it on some level. So I would love to do that. But anyway, well, let's keep it moving, because I know we got another guest coming up, and Jackie's going to take over, and we are happy to have her do that. Or do we actually? Am I messing up? Do we have an ear doctor segment first? My bad.
Do we? I see him there. Yeah, I think
I see him there. My bad.
We got to give the doctor his space.
Hey,
of course.
We're gonna do it real quick. I actually had a show on WRFG also. Called the show ATL Radio. So it's good to see another WRG person in the building.
Yeah. Good job having
shout out to 89.3 FM.
89.3 FM, man. Listen. Anyway, let's get to it. I got a quick flashback. Let's go.
Remix.
Yeah. Yeah. What's good, everybody? We're gonna do a quick Black Power Media flashback. We're gonna go to week 3, but before we do that, make sure y'all hit that likes button, that subscribe button, hit that bell, and share it, and let somebody else know what's going on here. Hey, it don't cost you no money. That way you can just, show the love. Anyway, let's go right here and take you back to this moment in time. Week 3 on Black Power Media with the Remix Show. Since we ain't got Brother Kalanji around today, let's do a little bit of Brother Kalanji. See him talking to no other than the good Professor Griff.
You know what I mean? For those of you who are unaware, Professor Griff is like the Paul Robeson of hip hop. You know what I mean? Coming through with that Public Enemy thing back in the day. You know what I mean? And been rocking ever since. You know what I mean? Dropping jewels and everything. Been knowing him for about 100 summers. You know, and he's no stranger to quote unquote controversy, as the white man would say. You know what I mean? What's your thoughts on that second Derek Chauvin case you talking about, man?
Before that, let me greet you and let me greet everyone on your morning show. And it's definitely, y'all are definitely yeah, this is something new. This is something very cool, very different, very refreshing. There's a million people that have YouTube shows and blog this and blog that, trying to get the blammy. Shout out to the ear doctor.
You know him well.
Yeah. So this is refreshing. I just wanted to say that. I'm not saying that because you're in front of me. I'm just saying it's definitely refreshing, for real. But so I'm thinking that maybe we as a people do not understand the system, and we don't understand how things work.
Listen, that's all I'm gonna give you with that. Y'all got to go back and check that out. That's the Remix Morning Show on the third week where we had Professor Griff on there. But we got some guests coming, so we're gonna get back to the host. So let's get to it, y'all.
He just wanted to make sure he got that good Blammies reference in there.
I was gonna say, have we fixed our levels since then? Why was the man shouting into the mic? I was like,
hey, that's showing growth. We definitely we came away. So but that's what it is. Had to take y'all back real quick, man. Listen.
That was week 3. That seemed like that was so long ago. Good grief.
For real. Yeah, wow. That was the first week of May right there. First week
of
May.
Good grief. Mm-hmm. We were all excited because we was like, oh, Professor Griff said we were special.
And he was right.
That's right.
Was right.
No doubt. Well, yo, I'll let y'all rock out. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.
All right, thanks. All right, Jackie, you're going to take it away here at the Remix Morning Show and get into I don't know what you're going to get into with our next guest.
Some trouble.
Racial wealth, some trouble. Get into some trouble here.
Yes, sir. I mean, this is really exciting to me because I love how all of the work we do and all of the people that we're involved with, they're kind of, it's like this one big Venn diagram of Blackness, and it's great because I'm really happy to have Pascal Robert, who is not only a member of my organization, Black Alliance for Peace, but he's also co-host of the This Revolution podcast. And he is a contributor to the Black Agenda Report. And he wrote an opinion piece that was published in Newsweek, which, I think that it is important for us to point out that we have, and I am claiming him, we have a Black radical voice being published in a major mainstream news publication in this country that is being read around the world. Now, Black Agenda Report is as far as I'm concerned, one of the premier publications for Black intellectual and radical thought. But I think it says something about the level of intellectualism when a radical can get published in Newsweek. So I'm really excited. Now we hope this lasts because after a while they'll be like, wait, they're talking about overturning the system and stuff, and we can't have that. So we'll celebrate it for as long as it goes. But we are really happy to have Pascal Robert with us today to talk about his latest piece in Newsweek, discussing the racial wealth gap and how the conversation about the racial wealth gap or the political obsession with the racial wealth gap really is kind of like a cover for more bourgeois Black politics. So, let's get to it.
All right, let's get to it. Here we go.
Greetings, everybody, all of you remixers this morning. Welcome, 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 Pascal. It's so nice to talk to you and see you at the same time.
Thank you very much, Jackie. I appreciate this opportunity to be on your show, and greetings to your other co-hosts as well. Big fan of the show. Big fan of what you guys are doing here at Black Power Media. It's a very important contribution to the whole current kind of media constellation.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And speaking of contributions, you are a contributor to Black Agenda Report. You are the co-host of This is Revolution podcast. Highly, highly recommend that podcast. And you are now published in Newsweek. And I think, is this your third piece that's been published in Newsweek? Second. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I really do think that's exciting that there are Black radical voices that are being published in major mainstream publications, because while of course that draws a certain amount of heat and scrutiny, it also elevates the Black radical intellectual tradition to a level of exposure that to people who aren't going to read Black Agenda Report, right, to people who aren't going to listen to this is Revolution podcast. So I think it's important to point that out.
Well, that's the goal, and I think that the opportunity presents itself to be able to present a kind of a Black radical left position in a mainstream publication, and of course that means that you're going to have to surrender to the editorial process. So there may be things that you may want to say that may or may not get in, but so far I haven't really been. I've had two pieces published. The first piece was a direct kind of expose on what is the Black political class and how it functions in the overall constellation of Black politics. And the piece that I did that came out earlier this week was about a subject matter that I think is kind of controversial, at least for the way that I basically explained it, as the racial wealth gap discourse, which, as you know, is a major kind of idea that has been elevated in not only Black social, intellectual, political spaces, but also in mainstream corporate sources, media sources, foundations, think tanks, elite universities, and so on and so forth. So, and also, as you know, probably as well as I do, it's been used as a major ideological justification for the reparations discourse as well, that this has become the kind of linchpin argument. So, my desire to kind of take this on, realizing all that, made me expect that it might seem controversial to some people.
Yeah, and when you posted the link to it on, I think your Twitter or on social or on Facebook, yeah, there was a little bit of heat, and I thought it was interesting because I read it, and I mean the heat was just immediate. It was so funny how people were just like immediately like, yeah, you started out good, but you kind of snapped at the end. But I think your arguments, the arguments that you make in this article, and for those who are watching, you can, you see the article on the screen, the op-ed on the screen. It is in Newsweek. The arguments that you are making in this piece are not that the racial wealth gap is not real, not that the racial wealth gap is not important, and not that the racial wealth gap does not need to be addressed through policy and whatever. But your argument is that the racial wealth gap has become, or the obsession with policies addressing the racial wealth gap has become almost a tool of the bourgeois Black political class to kind of enrich themselves. And that creates, well, it doesn't create, it continues to exacerbate the political problems of class that we have within the Black community. So break down for people the arguments that you're trying to make about why focusing on closing the racial wealth gap is a class problem for us.
Well, it's not only a class problem, it's a class project. The most important context that you have to understand in this overall discourse is to engage in something that a Black brother who wrote a very good book, his name is Preston Smith II. And the book is basically about, the title of the book, I have it here, is Racial Democracy in the Black Metropolis. It's about housing policy in post-war Chicago. And what Brother Preston Smith is outlining in this book is that there have been two basic philosophies about demanding policy to change the condition of Black folks' lives. There has been social democracy, which, as we know, on the left is basically getting class remedies that are rooted in the condition of poor and working class Black people and try to, put some influence on the ability of capitalism to redistribute wealth. And then there's racial democracy, which is something that usually Black elites or even Black nationalists have used, which is a kind of race first, we're all in this together, let us lead the community into getting the demands that we want for the community. And what Preston documents in that book, which highlights how this worked out in housing policy in Chicago, this is during the Jim Crow era. This is not during after the Civil Rights Movement. This is in the 40s and 50s, is that whenever Black elites and even Black nationalists demanded racial democracy or race-first programs, they always inured or gave a significant benefit to those Black elites or nationalist spokesmen, while the Black poor and working class not only didn't get much, but sometimes they would negotiate positionality to the white power structure where they would actually facilitate the oppression of Black poor and working class people in housing infrastructure policy to protect their more middle class and more elite position. So that's a framework. We had Preston Smith on our show. I suggest you want those of your audience to go into This is Revolution podcast's catalog, and you'll be able to get that interview. And that had, when reading that book and having that interview, that concept of racial democracy really, really stuck with me. And it made me analyze everything from the 20th century period to actually the Civil Rights Movement and understanding the actual economic reality of where Black life was before the Civil Rights Movement and after, and knowing that, yes, there have been some material economic advances after the Civil Rights Movement. The rate of the percentage of Black people who live below the poverty level did go down. In 1959, 1960, it was like 55% of Black people lived below the poverty level. Today, it's like 16, 18%. It's below 20%. But with the mass incarceration as well as deindustrialization, those Black people who were disproportionately up to 60% sharecroppers and domestic workers moved into a economic reality where they were not being integrated into capitalism because capitalism was pivoting to neoliberalism. And as a result, we get deindustrialization, we get drug proliferation with heroin, we get this fracturing of Black families, crime, mass incarceration. And this becomes the kind of proliferation of the quote unquote urban underclass or the Black underclass ideology. And you and I are close to age, that pretty much dominates what we call the 50-year counter-revolution on our show, the 50-year period after the Civil Rights Movement and whether the Civil Rights New Deal coalition is kind of being fractured by these policies that start with Nixon, go to Carter, that continue bipartisanly, that ground Black poor and working class people to dust, but starting with Nixon's Black capitalism, elevate a small cadre of Black middle class people. And these were quote unquote race first policies. They were not universal class programs. So understanding that argument and made me come to the conclusion is that part of the problem is that the way we are negotiating these race first programs is that it's not a race first program. It's a class first program. And it's a class first program of the Black political class or even the Black nationalist types who have been the racial spokesmen and ventriloquists for Black people going back to the 19th century. And how this became manifested in the racial wealth gap is that one of the consequences of that policy being the agenda for Black people is that now we're at a point where we have the largest racial wealth gap among Black people that we've ever had. The top 10% of Black people own 76% of Black wealth. And as a result, the rest of Black folk are either very poor or barely working poor or middle class. What is ironic, as bad as that sounds, when you look at the white community, the white top 10% only own 75% of their wealth, and the rest of them are pretty much middle class or broke. And of course, at all levels, white people have more wealth than Black people do. But when the top 10% of both tiers have 75% of the wealth, what are we arguing over? A housing project or a trailer park? in terms of who's getting what. So when I started to understand that those are the dynamics, I was like, why exactly is focusing on the racial wealth gap? And we talked on the show when I was on your show yesterday. I don't know at any other time in my life, and you are close to age, when anyone was shocked that black folk had less money than white people.
Right.
Like, this wasn't like
it's like that's not a surprise.
Yeah, it wasn't shocking to me. It wasn't shocking that there was a lot more money. And as I said, when over 60% of black labor was relegated to sharecroppers or domestic workers up until the 60s, why is it going to be shocking that even 50 years later, we're still going to have a significant racial wealth gap? That's like a logical consequence of how capitalism relegates black people to, as the leftists say, the reserve army of labor or surplus redundancy. So the thing that really, really kind of sparked this article, and I think I posted this on Facebook one time, you might have commented. I have a buddy of mine who works in finance, and I'm always making these kind of left arguments to him, and he's actually sympathetic, even though he works in the big time kind of capitalist world. So
he ain't giving up that paycheck.
Yeah, he's exactly. He's like, come on, man, this is good. I always ask him, yeah, man, you want to come on the show? He's like, nah, man, come on, man. You're gonna mess up my
You're gonna mess up my money.
Thing, man. You're gonna mess up my thing, man, talking all this stuff. So he sends me an email, and the email is about a function at the African American Alumni Association of Harvard Business School. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. The title of the function is that closing the racial wealth gap through employment on the Federal Reserve Board. I'm like, hold on. Let me read this right. I was like, oh, this can't be right. So I go back and I look at the advertisement, and these guys are having a symposium. These are alumni of Harvard Business School, a symposium inviting people from various parts of banking and finance and the Fed, arguing that getting black Harvard MBA alumni working on the board of governors for the Federal Reserve somehow was going to close the racial wealth gap for the supermajority of black people who are poor and working poor. And when I saw that, I was like, this is insane, man.
Well, wait. Well, hold on, Pascal, because maybe, just maybe, those black folks on the board of the Federal Reserve going to slip some of us some checks, right? They're going to slip us some ducats. Was that the plan? Was that what they were talking about?
Has Oprah sent you a check lately? Has Robert Smith sent you a check? Has Bob Johnson sent you a check?
Maybe they were thinking that these folks would be different, and they would do some special stuff. And no, that's not.
The Federal Reserve is still the Federal Reserve, and I don't necessarily see having a few black folk, being a few chocolate chips in the vanilla ice cream are going to be able to transform the functionality of the Federal Reserve to make it a wealth transfer to the black poor and working class. This was about a career advancement for black professionals. And then I started doing research as to all of the kind of suggestions for the closing of the racial wealth gap, particularly the ones that came around post George Floyd. And all of it was giving billions of dollars to corporations for diversity, equity, and DEI and inclusion, hiring more blacks, getting more black board members, giving more money to small businesses. And I'm like, George Floyd died, and we got all these people who are not class adjacent to George Floyd who are about to get paid off of his corpse. This is really fascinating. So I'm seeing how all of this, Robert Smith is always talking about the billionaire, the racial wealth gap. Bob Johnson is talking about the racial wealth gap. And I'm saying all of this in this kind of quote unquote racial justice period where people talking about reparations, about justice claim the racial wealth gap. I was like, this is a black elite hustle. I mean, I know these Negroes. I've been around them long enough. I know how they think.
So then, Pascal, excuse me, we're talking about 10% of the black population, the black elite, owning 75% of the black wealth. And they are the ones who have the political connections. They are the Robert Smiths. They are the James Clyburns. Honestly, they're the Congressional Black Caucus, right? They are the funders of the Congressional Black Caucus. They're the black folks who give the CBC money to continue to win their elections in their congressional districts, right? all across the country. So these folks, we're supposed to be excited that these folks now are pushing this Black agenda, which has become a buzzword among certain circles. I see it all the time, you know, with folks commenting on some of the shows. Oh, that's why we need a Black agenda. But then I think your piece raises the question, who's setting the agenda? What Black folks are setting the agenda? Are working class and poor Black folks setting the agenda? Or are the James Clyburns and the CBC and the Robert Smiths and their funders, that 10%, the Black elite, are they setting the agenda? Because I always look at things like the policies they push where they talk about, you know, more funding for HBCUs. And I mean, that's great. That's great. HBCUs should be funded better. But the reality is most of our kids don't go to HBCUs.
No, they do not.
All right. And
only
most
19% of Black students go to HBCUs.
19%, just 19% of Black students who go to college go to HBCUs. And I don't know what the percentage of Black students who go to college overall is, but all of our kids don't go to college, which is not a bad thing. Those are just the statistical realities. So increasing funding for HBCUs as a means to close the racial wealth gap that you know the masses of Black people have no wealth in, right? It doesn't serve the masses of Black people, and it doesn't even serve those Black people who attend HBCUs, because what happens in wider society when Black folks graduate from college? They still get paid less money,
right,
on the same job for the same, you know, for the same experience with the same degree, same level of education. They still get paid less money. They still get discriminated against. So, I mean, how do we change this conversation from,
this is going to be controversial, because I know a lot of our nationalist brothers or revolutionary brothers, they'll be like, what? I will say this. We need to have class warfare and stop dealing on this notion that we have this racial affinity with these Negroes that have been bailing and selling Black folk out for over 100 years. What good is having unity with a class of Black folk who are literally parasitically sucking from your misery to only get fat back and biscuits from the ruling class?
You mean to tell me all skin folk really ain't kin folk?
No, I'm not. There's a whole class of them that are not.
But see, okay, and here is where I think that some people will challenge you, and I feel like, and I hate to use the word nuance, because I think that word is being used in a weaponized way now to discredit, you know, critical thought. But I think that what people will say is that, you know, we have to help Black folks first. We can't align with everybody. We can't have a class only analysis here. But I am not hearing you say that this is a class over race issue, or it's a class first analysis. I'm hearing you say we have to have, among Black people, we have to have class solidarity. And the discussion about policies that help the masses have to come from working class and poor Black folks.
Jackie, let me ask you a question.
Yes,
if
sir.
I'm a class reductionist and I'm reducing my politics to the class that over 70% of Black people are in, what kind of class reduction am I? I'm a Black reductionist, because that's where Black people are. Now, the question becomes, because people will say, it was like, oh, working class coalitions where white folk don't work. I was like, well, they've worked in some capacity before. They weren't perfect, and sometimes they were betrayal, abolition, civil rights, things of that nature. We had communists working in the CIO in the 20s and 30s, the Scottsboro Boys. We have, for those of us familiar with left history, there are plenty of examples of white socialists and communists working with Black folk throughout time, from the populist era. Were they perfect? No. Were they wonderful? No. And I love, particularly when some of my college-educated 2-degree friends say, oh, those white working class folk will betray you. And I'm like, y'all Negroes have been betraying Black folk for over 100 years. So what benefit is dealing with y'all? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At least I don't have to worry about believing that white boy is supposed to be uplifting the race if he believes he betrays me.
Yeah. Hammer and Hoe, by the way, one of my favorite books. If you want to know the history, if you want to get some insight into the history of radical left organizing in the South among working class and poor white and Black folks, Hammer and Hoe is a really good book, one of the really good books.
So my position is that what we need to do, right? And this is another thing. I'm not saying surrender your organizational or racial integrity to a bunch of white leaders to lead you to the promised land. That's not what cross-racial coalitions means to me. What the first step is that you got to give your cadre political education. You got to get them up on their demands, their history, on left history, political education, how to function in the system. You got to give political education to your cadre of Black folk. Give them the education so that you don't have the situation where you have some white kid who's, a Yale graduate can tell you, like, I know the history of, like, the Black communists better than you do. Get your political education up so that when these alabaster leftists come in your space, they can't talk that mess. That's the first step. Number one. Number two, go into their spaces and say, you know what, we're here. I tell people all the time, I get a lot of beef from some of our radical brothers on the left. Like, they're like, oh, good, you're a member of Black Alliance of Peace. I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm also a member of DSA. Like, all those DSA sock downs, they're lame, and so on and so forth. I said, listen, DSA is an organization with maybe 70,000 members. How come we don't just take it over? Why can't we get Black Alliance for Peace or all the Black radical left to join DSA and just take that bad boy over? You think those sock downs are going to have a problem with listening to us when we're the majority of the organization? We have DSA is an organization that's national, has chapters in every city. They have elected officials already in Congress for those of our brothers and sisters who are interested in electoralism. They have at least a socialist-led agenda. Why can't we take the organization over after we do our political education in our communities and radicalize the organization? And then we'll still have a foothold into electoralism through the left flank of the Democratic Party, and we can still do our radical organizing outside the Democratic Party.
That sounds like something we need to organize around and chop up and think about within our organization. That's deep. That's got my wheels turning. But I really appreciate, Pascal, you providing the commentary that you do all the time in Black Agenda Report, but particularly this commentary that's being published in Newsweek, and this discussion specifically, because I think this phenomenon of celebrity worship, of relying, still a lot of our people are very, very much committed to electoralism, and they elevate these Black politicians to celebrity status, and we don't have a clear enough class analysis that's deep enough for us to really move away from these very generic kind of agent-like campaigns that these folks come up with, like closing the racial wealth gap is going to free us. So that's why I really appreciated this piece, and I really, really appreciate you coming on and breaking this down. Good to see you. Good to talk to you as always. And tell people where they can find you, follow you, and support you.
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at PRobert06 on Twitter. You can Google my name for Facebook, and you got to check us out at This Is Revolution Podcast on YouTube. You Google my name, you'll find all my articles at Black Agenda Report. This Is Revolution Podcast on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast apps, you can find This Is Revolution Podcast. But go to our YouTube. We live stream on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m., Thursday nights at 9 p.m., and Saturdays at noon. We had Jared on our show as well. So, we are very open to working with Black and brown comrades on our left, some who might be more to our left, and some who might be kind of, a little bit more liberal. But we're trying to, the goal of our show is to basically expose Black left politics to audiences who have never heard them before, who are not familiar with them, and let them know that there is a Black left tradition in this country that is over a century old, that the media and the ruling class intentionally want to obfuscate as if it does not exist.
You bet. Thank you so much, Pascal, for joining me, and we'll be talking soon.
All right, for sure.
All right.
Oh,
Oh.
right on,
Sorry
right
about
on.
that.
Very
Nope,
good
nope.
discussion.
Yeah, that was great. And I just want to give this disclaimer. As members of Black Alliance for Peace, we can give our opinion, because I am a member of Black Alliance for Peace as well. We can give our opinion as to what we would like to see our organization do, but nobody's giving marching orders for Black Alliance for Peace on that's not something that we can just say and things decide, but these are opinions. So just wanted to make that clear before Ajamu Baraka calls me and has words for me, because I said that
y'all about to join
no.
DSA?
No. That's an opinion, and it's something we could talk about, but no, that's not happening.
I like that the brother back on at some point to have that longer discussion about the who's being referred to as the nationalists and so forth. So I think even within nationalist circles, there's a class analysis a lot of times, and so I think that's important to bring out, and not to just say nationalists in general, because I think there is this long line of revolutionary nationalist thinking that also obviously takes into account the idea of class analysis, particularly around Black elites. So I think that's an interesting sort of further discussion to have at some point when we have some more time. But of course, I agree with the wealth gap analogy of, like, somehow this has become the top talking point for our community in terms of what is racial oppression. I think is obviously, I agree with them, like a class project, right? It's meant to be directed, make sure that whatever resources there is directed towards a certain positioning of Black folks, and it's not at all concerned about the overall well-being of ourselves as a community or fighting oppression.
There's a lot. There's a lot to get to. In the first of all, I want to say I want to encourage people to go back and check out the show I did Monday with Dedrick Muhammad, where we actually had this debate, which referenced the same Matt Brunig work that Pascal references in his Newsweek piece. And Dedrick, and I don't fully agree. I was just texting him during that interview and saying we need to, come back and have our another round of our debate again on this issue, because I do largely. So for instance, Pascal mentions in his piece, if I remember correctly, he talks about like what I keep saying. We're in this moment more than any other time where all of our issues can be brought up and discussed, but they're brought up and discussed in very conservative and reactionary ways. So I agree with Robert when he is critical of he talked about Ibram Kendi, Nicole Hannah-Jones, Ta-Nehisi Coates, like as the people who are popularly discussing and representing this racial wealth gap. They are not the nationalists, I think, that either of us or any of us are talking about. But in terms of how these issues get taken popularly, they do get dragged to the right, to very conservative conclusions that I think do us a disservice. So I certainly agree with how this is, I think, negatively impacted discussions of reparations, of with whom we should work, because I do find it odd that people who would say we shouldn't have racial solidarity at a class level tacitly, if not explicitly, have racial solidarity at a class level with other whites, because they're appealing to those whites to get the same things that they say they want vis-a-vis reparations or something else. You're still going to have to get white people to sign off on that. So as you're saying, a lot of people cloak themselves in this radical Black nationalism and say, I just want Black first, but your approach to that still requires white solidarity and support, but not at a necessarily a broader, more radical level. So anyway, there's a lot. I appreciate the discussion, and we definitely have to keep having it and challenging popular representations of these discussions. So Dedrick will be back with me at some point maybe next week, but to continue our debate, because he is very much on the side against the Brunig argument, the Adolph Reed argument, the Pascal Robert argument of this broader racial solidarity piece, as being necessary for Black people to get what they deserve first. I don't know. Anyway, I don't even know if I made all that clear, but anyway.
No, that was good. That was very clear. That was good.
Yeah. I mean, but I think that's the beauty of this platform, I think, and what we just generally do. I mean, I'm one of those fortunate people that I get to do this for a living. Like when I'm done here, I will slide over to the chair over there and turn the computer on, and then I'll do this for by any means necessary. And I get to do this for a living. Not a lot of people, most people don't get, to do that. So I get exposed to a lot of information and ideas that I can't keep to myself. I have to share it with other people, because that's the only way you sharpen your own analysis. At least that's how I see it. I learned as the stuff I know, I learned from talking to other people, from, reading, but then throwing the ideas that I saw from, that I got from reading around with other people who explained the finer points of things to me and connected me to the history. And we disagreed on some things, and it's in that disagreement where you do sharpen your analysis, because you have to figure out, why do you believe what you believe, based on the facts. Then you've got to make sure your facts are straight, and you have to defend your beliefs. And if you can't, then maybe your ideology is off and messed up, and maybe you're just wrong. And you just, so it's great to have these platforms where we can, expose these ideas, challenge some really popular ideology that sounds good on the surface, but expose them for what they really are. But also, not always see eye to eye on how to get to the other side of it, but have a very healthy discourse in the fact that we do need to get to the other side of it, though. So that I really, really appreciate. And I'm sure Pascal will come back and we'll do more of this, because I do love his commentary. And this is Revolution podcast is so much fun.
And I know we got to wrap up, but that's one thing that the brother brought up, was the idea about cadre development or political education, right? Because if you can't have these discussions within your grouping, and there's only a few people that have, then you're not doing your job, because that means other people are not being politicized the way that they need to, so that they can implement these policies or implement these ideas. Because when it comes time to challenge the system, you're going to have a few leading the many, and you never know where that's going to go. So,
yeah. And
listen,
and just
before we get, sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
Jack.
I'm sorry. Real finally, because I can't. I know you tell me not to do it, Jared, but I can't help it. It's like moth to a flame. The chat over here, man, y'all with the best Bitcoin. $10 in Bitcoin is not going to pay your rent. It's not.
Stay out the chat, Jackie. Stay out the chat.
It's wonderful. A Bitcoin investment for you is wonderful, but it's not going to fund the revolution. Not going to pay your rent. Not going to pay off your car note. Oh, okay. That's enough.
All right, so listen, before we get out of here, everybody, please do come back tomorrow morning for as I mix what I like, and Brother Kaba try to hold it down for the Boom Bap Breakfast remix crew. And we're going to be joined. I don't know all that's happening on the show, but at least part of the show is going to be a discussion with Dr. Obadeli Cambone, talking about Pan-Africanism from his work over there in Ghana. So anyway, so come on back for that, and definitely stay tuned for Black Power Media. Make sure you click like, share, subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss all the good stuff that's coming. And thanks for having a great week of Remix. And as we wrap up on our Thursday, Fridays of Remix, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning.
Y'all know I'm petty.
He said,